Welcome back, Flyers Nitty Gritty fans, to Getting Gritty with It with your host, Yariv. Wolok, my partner in crime, Vasili Gianarakos, is not here. He's on his honeymoon, so we congratulate him on that one. He is touring Greece and Italy and doing much cooler things than I am right now. So good for him, but we will soldier on. We mentioned this on the previous episode that he wouldn't be on here, so I'm just going to do this one alone. And be honest with you guys, there hasn't been that much news. We're going to talk a little bit about Tyson Forester, talk a little bit about rumors, and then I'm going to do a deep dive just into the Flyers roster since we have a little more clarity on it, and might be a shorter episode, but I will do my best to fill it. We are definitely in the dead season right now. There's almost nothing happening at this point when it comes to the NHL. Content has definitely been strained, but we're about maybe 2 weeks, realistically 3 weeks away from content kind of picking up. We do have the rookie games coming up in the middle of September. Young guys will be in town. Then after that will be the beginning of training camp. So by the time of end of September, we're gonna have a much better idea of where the Flyers are, where their roster could be heading into the season, at least what the roster battles will look like. We'll know about injury situations and stuff like that. So I'm going to talk about that in today's episode, but again, most of it is speculation. We will do more of it as we move forward. You can see other shows as well. They're kind of straining to find content. My whole thing is I just keep talking about the team the way I want to talk about them, which is most of the time I just brainstorm as far as what's going on with the team. So I'll do my best to make it interesting today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know most people are listening are probably the more hardcore fans, so maybe you're doing these experimentations on your own time. So I'm going to do them with a screen share in the second half of the show. Before we get started, just want to remind everybody, please like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell for notification. Get notified when we release these episodes. Try not to do them too randomly. Typically, they are between a Monday and a Wednesday when we record. Try to get it out at night. But again, especially when the season kicks in, things kind of rotate around that. And, life might change for both of us in the near future. So make sure you hit the subscribe button or the notification button and the subscribe button just to know when our episodes come out so you can be well aware of when they do come out. And also for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes. Give us a rating and a follow as well. That is the best way to support this show by giving us the likes, the subscriptions, the notifications, the ratings, the following us on the audio channels. Again, that helps us grow. And we're really looking forward to this upcoming season. Hopefully you guys are too. And we're definitely going to keep things rolling there. Also, shout out to our sponsors, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to go to Jim's at 4th and South. Go get yourself a cheesesteak. Also, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company. Make sure you get the best claim possible. They will help deal with all of the headaches with dealing with insurance companies. Again, Summit Public Adjusters, 215-752-0560. And also want to give a brief shout out to our partner, SportsSpider.com. Guys, if you're tired of searching multiple websites for sports news, SportsSpider.com has you covered. They collect the latest articles, videos, and podcasts from around the web and organize them by your favorite teams. If you want to stay as up to date on our Philadelphia Flyers or the NHL in general, make sure to check out SportsSpider.com. The link is in the description for both the audio and video versions of this podcast. Again, SportsSpider.com. Make sure to check them out. Our stuff is pinned at the top. Okay. Big news, the only Flyers news, but one that has been highly anticipated. And shout out to Bill Meltzer for doing the reporting on this one and breaking it several days ago, I believe leading into the weekend. It is now a Tuesday, the 19th. So it's been several days, but it was and still is pretty much of a big deal. What we got is Bill kind of getting word from Danny Briere, general manager, that the Tyson Forrester's situation has been heading in a positive direction, and as of right now, it looks like he's going to start the season on time. Again, there was a lot of speculation. San Filippo had the report where it could stand, and again, he's only trying to report on the status, right? But there was a little bit of worst case scenario kind of baked into those reports. Again, he's only kind of speculating. A lot of times it is safer to go worst case scenario. Just, you don't want to be too positive on things, and things have come back to bite the Flyers in the past. So definitely not 100% right now, but as of right now, the reports are that Forester will start the season on time, probably will be part of training camp and preseason, and then get him in a Flyers uniform during preseason. We'll see. We'll have more information. Probably, my guess is mid-September, late September. Probably have a better idea if he's going to truly start on time. But let's give it an 80% chance that things will be starting on time. But at the very least, it's not going to extend into January, 3 months in. That doesn't seem to be the case. So maybe he still might miss a small amount of time at the beginning of the season, maybe miss portions of training camp. What really hurts about it is his ability to work out this summer. He obviously, it's my guess, but he's not going to have a full off season like we were hoping for. This does tend to spread. Sometimes it slows down the start of the player's season. So that should be anticipated to some degree. But at least we know that his body is heading in the right direction. That is most important. So I will go through in the second half of this show what the line combination will be. We can now include Tyson Forester in it confidently. And I'll talk about the things that kind of been going through my mind when it comes to roster discussion. I did try to create a realistic scenario with Puckpedia. So I'll go through that afterwards. The other big thing, and this has not gone away, this is not necessarily directly Flyers news, but the Flyers have been looped into these rumors, and that is the Mason McTavish rumors. He is still unsigned. The situation there is, at least publicly, becoming tenuous. I don't know exactly if things are actually strained or if this is kind of just the Ducks playing hardball. Again, they have time. The guy's working out. They still have another month until their training camp opens up, right? So in their mind, a lot of times these negotiations come down to the wire. I brought this up many of times. I brought it up with TK. I brought it up with other large negotiations, especially ones that are very public with highly coveted players. A lot of times that your biggest leverage is the deadline, the ability to walk away, the ability to throw an offer and then walk away from the table. Considering he's a restricted free agent, third overall pick, they just moved Trevor Zegras. I can't see Mason McTavish being traded. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. Should the Flyers be in on it, which maybe is a more relevant question? And the answer is absolutely. Now, it depends on the cost, though. Look, he's a really good young player. He's a player that the Flyers would pretty much need. But if you look at the position the Flyers kind of put themselves in, with Jack Nesbitt, Jet Luchenko being in the mix, obviously Berglund is part of that group. And, there's a slew of other young players that are kind of competing for center positions. You still have Noah Cates here. You still have Sean Couturier. You still have Dvorak, who was brought in here. And clearly Trevor Zegras is now in the mix. It's not a lineup that is like, hey, you have your number one center, but you do have a slew of 2 to 4 guys in the mix. And I am not 100% confident that Mason McTavish necessarily projects to be a number one center. But maybe more in that, Jet Luchenko like number one center where he's a two-way guy. Again, he did have 60 points, I believe, last year. So really good numbers for a young guy. He's physical. He's got a defensive game to him. So highly valuable and definitely a top six forward, right? Definitely projects to continue to grow into maybe being an 80 to, maybe 90-point player. I don't know. But if you're hitting 60 some points in your early 20s, that projectability is there, right? So we know at the very least his floor 60-point player, ceiling could be a 90-point player, right? So it is a player absolutely worth investigating. The question is, what would they want? And they probably would want a lot. I would assume Jack Nesbitt would be an ask, or even Jet Luchenko, and I'm not convinced the Flyers would be willing to move either one of those guys. The Flyers would most likely offer a combination of assets to try to compensate, right? We already know that Danny Briere in the team's current position is going to play hardball, right? So with a guy like this, he is not going to overoffer. The Trevor Zegras thing should illuminate that for everybody, right? So my guess is the Flyers look at their wing position. Maybe they'd be willing to move an Owen Tippett. Maybe they'd be willing to move Bobby Brink. There are some defensemen on the team that, could be thrown in a combination package. Emil Andre, Igor Zamula, maybe even Bonk. I'm not convinced they would really want to move Bonk, but again, you're trying to deal for a really good player. So I would imagine, if I'm Anaheim, I'm asking for Bonk and Luchenko, right? Or I'm asking for Luchenko and a first. Because you got the guarantee NHL player with seasoning built into him. You've developed him already. Even Luchenko, you are high on him. You still want that little bit extra to cover for the option that he's not going to be as good as maybe you even scout that he will be. So maybe it's even like they settle on Luchenko and a second round pick and maybe another prospect or something for a guy like him. I can't really see the Flyers being that interested in moving anybody very young. I guess there is an option of moving somebody like Bump, who probably is not as highly regarded around the league as he is internally with the Flyers until he makes the NHL leap. He is a guy who I could see maybe halfway through the season. He's on the Flyers. He's doing well. I can see his value going up dramatically. But again, not all teams are as tied into the prospect pool as much as the team itself who owns the player. Also, you're going to be a little more positive about them when you're developing them internally. So again, I think they have the assets to do it if they really want to. I'm just not convinced Anaheim's really going that route. I think most of the speculation is coming from boredom, because there's not that much to talk about, and this player is still out there. Again, is it possible he gets traded? Absolutely. Why is it impossible? I just look at it as a scenario where the Flyers will have interest. They will have conversations. I don't think they'll be willing to move the necessary assets to get the deal done in the short term. Maybe it's a guy who Anaheim bridges, and then the Flyers are kind of keeping tabs on him over the next year or two. And then maybe he's a guy that they trade for down the line. It's possible, but considering the two blockbuster trades the teams just had, I don't think the Flyers are on the top of that list. Ideally, I think Anaheim would try to find a team that is in a similar position with a player where you have a young, highly valued asset, maybe also a centerman or maybe a top defensive asset, something that is hard to replace, right? So like you're looking for a top pairing defenseman, you're looking for a top six center. These are two of the hardest positions to find in hockey. So maybe they could do that type of swap, similar to the Flyers trading Cutter Gauthier for Jamie Drysdale, right? Like it's hard to find guys who were drafted top six in the NHL draft. In Drysdale, who's a defenseman with a high offensive upside, and obviously Cutter Gauthier being fifth overall pick. Like you're trying to look for comparable value and then leverage depending on the position that the team is in, right? The Flyers didn't have the leverage considering they got Drysdale in a second, pretty good return. And I think them keeping it private really helped that return. And I think Anaheim kind of worked with them on that one. But in this case, I don't know if Anaheim, again, if they're kind of with their backs against the wall, they got the guys in RFA, they might be even willing to just take him into the season. Be like, okay, well, we'll sacrifice the first half of your season just to make sure we get a good deal on you moving forward. And I assume that they see him as a piece moving forward. He's not their number one center, probably, where they have Leo Carlson, who's that guy. But he definitely is in that top six forward mix for them. They took him third overall for a reason. They're obviously high on him. So we'll see what happens with McTavish. I wouldn't get your hopes up that he's coming to the Flyers, though. It's interesting to talk about. I do suspect he will re-sign with the team, probably last minute as we approach the trade deadline. That's my assumption. Typically, it's my assumption. I'm not that tied into it. But I do think that a lot of contract negotiations come down to the wire for a reason. You're kind of running out of real estate, kind of forced to make a decision. And then when you're forced to make a decision, you kind of find a happy medium when these type of situations are created. The other one, I saw this kind of looping around on Facebook, and I think this is, I don't want to say it's a fake rumor because I think rumors come from a certain place. They come from speculation, or maybe team is having conversations. So then people outside of it are kind of injecting their own narratives into it. And, there were rumors apparently that Owen Tippett the Flyers were in conversation with Buffalo for a trade. Owen Tippett was one of the assets kind of moving around. I think this is the one thing we got to talk about. I talked about this with Vasili last time. Our impatience with a player should not be assumed that the team and the GM, one that especially gave him a long-term deal, is already losing patience because of somewhat down year. And I'm not gonna shit on Vasili, he's not here, but Vasili's, and we all are down on Tippett to some degree, right? Even mildly and I don't think Vasili's like, oh, we got to get rid of Tippett or something. But, I kind of brought it up in our conversation. You look at Owen Tippett, everybody's like, yeah, he had a down year. He was still like third on the team in points. The team had a down year. He could have played better. He should have played better. I'm not saying that he met my expectations for the year, but it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, well, we got to get rid of the guy who's third overall in points, who's in his mid-20s, when the rest of the team was abysmal offensively as well, especially because the power play was going awful. So, I do criticize him, but it doesn't mean the patience of the organization walks away. Now, if he dropped to eighth on the team in points, then you're kind of in a panic situation. But there's also the thought of, you have a guy, his value hasn't dropped, at least dramatically or anything like that. He still has trade value. Could you swap him with something in Buffalo? The one thing I saw in that rumor was Peyton Krebs in a first. I can tell you right now, Flyers are not making that trade. It doesn't make them better. Peyton Krebs, while a decent prospect, a decent young player, it's hard to call him a prospect so much now, definitely projects to be like a third line player in the NHL. Good speed, right? Some two-way ability. But you just got rid of Morgan Frost. You have other centers here. The Flyers are going to be higher on other players. That's not going to move the needle for the Flyers unless they're sheerly just trying to get rid of the cap hit. And considering the amount of cap that they have going into next year, that's not the case. So that doesn't seem very interesting to me. And I don't see that being... Now, if it's for a combination, you'd have to trade extra, but a guy like Tage Thompson, there's other players on Buffalo. Bowen Byron was a guy we brought up, right? There are other players on there that I think would be more tempting for the Flyers to trade for. I just, Zach Benson, I saw thrown around there. That is a more realistic type of player that the Flyers would be interested in trading for. I don't know if Buffalo would actually even be open to moving him. Again, he's got a high ceiling. He's a really good young player. He's undersized, but he compensates for it with grit and tenacity. So it's he does fit the Flyers mold, but then why wouldn't he fit their mold? But they are looking to compete now. So there is, maybe a conversation was had there. As far as what I see right now, I don't see on a surface level Buffalo and Philadelphia making a trade. In this current position in this off season without the teams playing during the season and recognizing what their weaknesses are. I don't see it on the surface level. The only thing I really saw was in a contract negotiation for the Flyers with York and Bowen Byram with Buffalo. And I was like, okay, again, this is what I was talking about, the Mason McTavish thing. It's like, okay, trade my problem for your problem, both about equal assets. Like people can be higher on Bowen Byram, I understand, and be lower on Cam York. I promise you there is a Philadelphia internal bias here. The negativity over the years, understandably so, makes people assume that our assets are worth less. That is not really the case. It's fine that if people want to make that argument, but most of that has to do with leverage. That's why a lot of people are like, how did you manage to make that trade? They gave up almost nothing. It's leverage. It's leverage. A lot of times it's leverage, the position of the contract, the position of the team. So I don't feel like a lot of people actually have a strong understanding of how trades are made, how the conversations are had. And, a lot of it is through like your understanding through video games, which is how I learned a lot of NHL stuff, just like being in the business world and then, just kind of learning and becoming a little older and understanding negotiations more, having to deal with my own negotiations in life. You just start understanding that what negotiations really are all about. And, you just look at enough trades over time and see the inconsistency in returns, and you have to look at why. Some cases teams get a haul, in some cases teams get less. It's not always about a cap hit. Sometimes the cap hit does matter, but it depends on what the term, the position that both teams are in contract wise or cap hit wise. There's just so many facets that a lot of these trades, they take a lot of time. So I will say there probably are conversations between Buffalo and Philadelphia, and they will continue to materialize over time. I just don't see the trade right now for the Flyers that they are going to jump on immediately. I do think they're interested in Matthias Samuelsson. I'm not convinced that Buffalo actually wants to get rid of him. And they kind of stated as such publicly. And I think the biggest name the Flyers would probably be interested in is really on their defense. I think they'd love Tage Thompson. Buffalo has no interest in moving him, let's be honest. Rasmus Dahlin would be a top of their interest. That'd be a humongous trade. You have to give up an immense amount of assets to get a defenseman that good. And the same thing with Owen Power. I think Owen Power would be very high on the Flyers list if they could bring in a defenseman with that kind of size and skill. Again, why would Buffalo move those guys? So I don't see anything on the surface level, but maybe there is a blockbuster trade out there in the future if Buffalo continues to be frustrated. The Flyers don't take a step forward this year. Then I think this is a conversation to reevaluate maybe halfway through the season, maybe around the holidays. Again, talked about in the last episode, there is contingency built into the season, right? Like the Flyers have a bunch of contracts they can shoot off at some point in the year if they do not feel like they're heading in the right direction. And we all know that they've literally been planning their schedule around this stuff. And don't forget that Porter Martone is coming, that Jet Luchenko is a definitive next year if he doesn't make the team this year, right? There are other young players that probably need another year of seasoning before they really, Oliver Bonk being the biggest name, right? We have Igor Zavragin, who we don't know exactly what's going to happen with him, but he's another important piece that the Flyers plan on bringing over, probably not next year, but maybe the following year, right? So to us, we get impatient. We want things now. We get excited. We always want stuff now. But I don't think the Flyers are thinking necessarily now. I think they're thinking, again, still 24 months being the like we expect to be good in 24 months. And in 12 months, we expect to see progress that we've headed in the right direction in the standings and on the stat sheets. No more, hey, we're just filling up internally. The system is full. Prospect pool is full. The wing positions are full. The middle six depth positions are full. It's really that high end, top of the lineup that is some in question, some in development, but they want to see definitive progress in 24 months. I almost promise you that the 12-month mark, meaning next offseason, that is, we see a team on paper that is at least a definitive wild card team, right? So we think we're anywhere between eighth in the conference to third in the conference that's where they expect to be at the end of next season. Will they get there? I'm not sure. We'll see throughout the year, but that most likely is their plan. And we'll see how things go. Okay. One more topic I'm going to bring up, and then we'll get into the line combinations, and I'm going to talk more about the roster and pretty much similar stuff that I was just talking. So, this I just thought it was interesting. And the news just came out today that Team USA's invite roster has been submitted. And I'm going to go through the names and then I'll talk about the controversy. And let's be honest, it's always fun to watch Canadian hockey fans kind of panic about their teams because there is a disillusionment with Canadian hockey because they have so much media that they talk about their own guys so much that they assume that everybody thinks the way that they do about their roster. And I don't think that's all Canadian fans or anything like that are all media, but like we see it with the Habs, and I think the Lane Hudson thing, and I'll talk about him specifically. Like I'm seeing him on lists as like top 8 defensemen in the league. He is not. I'm sorry. He is not. That's like the same thing we would have been doing about Shane Gostisbehere, him having that amazing rookie season. He's one of the top 10 defensemen in the NHL. Even Erik Karlsson, and I brought this up about Erik Karlsson, not that good defensively. Your primary role as a defenseman is to play defense. I'll get back to that in a second. So let me go through the lineup. Again, this is the invite list, so it's larger than the actual roster will be. Matt Boldy, Cole Caulfield, Logan Cooley, which is pretty cool, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Connor Garland, Jake Gensel, Jack Hughes, Patrick Kane, surprising because of his age, but not his skill set, Clayton Keller, Matthew Nyes, Chris Kreider, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Frank Nazar, very young player, surprised actually about him, Brock Nelson, Shane Pinto, Jason Robertson, Brian Rust, Tage Thompson, Brady Tkachuk, Vincent Torchek, and Alex Tuck are the forwards. I'll tell you, like I kind of have my favorites already. Probably Boldy, Cooley, Caulfield, Connor, Eichel, Gensel, Hughes, Jack Hughes, Keller. I don't know if Patrick Kane. We'll see how he does. He's getting up there in age. Matthew Nyes for sure. I don't know about Kreider. Dylan Larkin for sure. Matthews 100%. Top line center probably. JT Miller I could see still being on the team. He's right in that bubble of prime and age. Frank Nazar maybe. I can't see it. Seems a little too young to me. Brock Nelson most likely. Shane Pinto maybe for a bottom 6 role. Jason Robertson definitely. Brian Rust maybe. Based off pedigree, there are better players. Tage Thompson, definitely. Brady Tkachuk, 100%. Vincent Torchek, I could see being the 4th line center. And then Alex Tuck, I think he's got a good chance as well. I think they'll go kind of the premier guys at the top. And if you're taking a bottom 6 role, you're probably a veteran or at least bottom line role. We'll see how it pans out because that top 9 is very full, but still interesting. Defense. Brock Faber, Adam Fox, Noah Hannafin, Luke Hughes, Quinn Hughes, Seth Jones, Jackson Lacombe. I never know how to say names. If people have learned, I'm terrible at names. Charlie McAvoy, Ryan McDonough, Brent Pesce, Neil Pionk, Jake Sanderson, Brady Shea, Jacob Slavin, Alex Vlasic, and Zach Werenski. I think we know who the top 6 defensemen. I mean, Brock Faber's most likely going to make it, right? I can't see him not. Adam Fox. I'd say Hannafin is probably in that mix too. Luke Hughes is probably in the mix. Quinn Hughes a definite. Seth Jones seems like he'd be a definite. Charlie McAvoy seems like a definite. Again, health also matters. McDonough, maybe. He's a little older now. Brent Pesce, maybe. Neil Pionk's a maybe. Jake Sanderson's a definite. Brady Shea's a maybe. Jacob Slavin's a definite. Alec Vlasic's, I'd say, maybe least likely of all these defensemen. And Zach Werenski's a definite. So the goalies are Joey Decord, Connor Hellebuck, Jake Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. I think Decord most likely is the one out of that group. Maybe he beats out Swayman, but I think Hellebuck and Ottinger will be the starters and backup. We'll see about that. But pretty cool that USA. So again, the big controversy is that Lane Hudson was not invited to it. Look, when you see a guy like Alex Vlasic on there, you do kind of wonder why Lane Hudson wasn't invited. I'll tell you straight up, it's because his defense game stinks. He's not good defensively. He is at best average at defense, and it doesn't mean he can't be great defensively. It means he's an undersized rookie, and the likelihood of him excelling defensively in this tournament is unlikely. Could it change? Maybe his invite would change throughout the year, but he'd have to show he's better defensively. This is what frustrates me about Lane Hudson's Rookie of the Year. Again, secondary assist. It reminds me of Shane Gostisbehere, who I never said was one of the best defensemen in the NHL. This is an offensive defenseman. People freaked out over Erik Karlsson for years, but he's not very good defensively either. A lot of these guys, your primary goal is a defensive role. The secondary part is your offensive game. Guys who are primarily good at offense, you are a one-dimensional defenseman, and it's hard for me to list you as one of the best defensemen in the league. If you are an exceptional defensive defenseman, like a Jacob Slavin, it's not that hard because you're a shutdown guy. That means if people come into your zone, you are never a negative. Now, this is not me saying Lane Hudson can't be incredible and can't be better defensively and can end up being one of the top 5 best defensemen in the league. It's absolutely possible. Offensive game is sick, right? Great passer, dynamic skater, has the ability to carry the puck up the ice himself. He's got somewhat of a good shot, not incredible, but he has his moments with shooting too. So high-end defenseman-wise, he's there. But when you're talking about playing against the opposition's best players, that kid could get eaten alive. Like, I'm sorry. And again, this is like the downside on Michkov. The difference with Michkov is that he plays wing. That is defensively the easiest position to play. And I still believe Michkov is a better player than Hudson. I don't even think it's much of a question. Just like Celebrini, in my opinion, should have been Rookie of the Year. Highest point per game, best defensively of all the rookies, and had a high-end offensive game. And by the way, he was also the youngest. I don't know. Celebrini, in my mind, easily should have been. It should have been Celebrini 1, Michkov 2, Hudson 3, and Wolf 4. But again, that's my vote. But again, I understand why Hudson's not on the list. Should he get a chance to try out? Probably, but he wouldn't make my final list. Like, I'm not surprised he's not on this list. He's a young defenseman who's undersized. Could he prove them wrong? 100%. He's got the skill. He's got the skill, and I'd like to see him prove wrong. Like, Jack Nesbitt wasn't on Team Canada. Okay, for the WJSS, he was okay. He wasn't on it. He's off their radar. He's got more to prove. He didn't put up above a point per game pace and dominate guys. He's a trending young player. So Hudson, you have that too. You have a hole in your game. Your defensive game is average. That's the problem with your game. Your offensive game is great. There are several other guys on the team that also have great offensive games. Like, you're not better than Werenski or Quinn Hughes offensively. They're going to take those power play minutes from you. You're not big, right? So Luke Hughes gets the edge. Neil Pionk's a good defensive defenseman. Jake Slavin is the best defensive defenseman in the NHL. Brock Faber is better than you, right? It's like, I get it. I understand why he's left off the list. Charlie McAvoy is better than him. Adam Fox is better than him. Jake Sanderson, could he be better than them? Yes, give him a few more years. I expect him to be on the next Olympic team. We'll see how it works out. But again, like, I love Shane Gostisbehere. I still love him. I still think he was undervalued. I still think he's undervalued, but he's an offensive defenseman. His key element is to convert defense off. This is why a guy like Jamie Drysdale gets ripped apart. He probably will never be a shutdown guy. It's possible, but we need him to be an offensive defenseman, a guy who converts from his own end, but he's never going to be like he can play with a guy like Travis Sanheim, for example, and be a shutdown pairing, but he's not going to be the backbone of your defense. He doesn't necessarily have that skill set. He's slightly undersized. He's a great skater. Like if he can become a Quinn Hughes, okay. And that's what Lane Hudson is going to try to be is Quinn Hughes, right? Quinn Hughes wasn't Quinn Hughes when he first came in the league either. So I understand it from that perspective. It is a little funny to watch Habs fans freak out over. Yeah, again, this is why I didn't agree that he was rookie of the year. You know, like Macklin Celebrini probably should be invited to Team Canada's. Like Michkov would be on Team Russia, but again, if Michkov played center the way he played defense last year, he can't play defense at a high level in the NHL yet. Now, maybe he comes in next year and he's improved, but Michkov's defensive game is at best average. And I would say it's below average right now. His offensive game is superior. It's already, near star potential or star execution. Potential is obviously there. But his defensive game ain't that good. It's not very good. It's not very good. We have to be honest about it. Can he be better? Yes. I believe even next year he can be better. Same with Hudson. Hudson is clearly very skilled. And that's where you look at a guy like Celebrini. He kind of has it all. That's why he reminds you of Sidney Crosby. He doesn't really have a weakness. I don't know if he's going to be as good as Sidney Crosby, but he doesn't really have a weakness to his game. He's like an elite checking center, elite grinder type of guy. They're hard to find. They almost never happen. Where it's a guy who's like Braden Point is that guy, but he's 5'9", right? He's undersized. Imagine you gave him like 3-4 more inches. Probably, maybe would be one of the best centermen in the NHL. I mean, he kind of is already, but he's never going to be talked about in the top 5. All right, let's get into the roster conversation. This part's more just fun for me. I'm going to share my screen. We've done this so many times already, but I love doing it, to be honest with you, because this is an exercise that I run myself. So now I have the roster put in a situation. You can see the projected cap space is over. Again, with no LTIR applied and one roster spot also over. So if you send one guy to the minors, you're already under the cap. You're cap compliant to start the year, which they would have to anyway. And I just put players in that are fighting for that spot. At least I believe. We will see what happens during training camp. How things kind of change. Some guys are going to have better training camps than we think or worse training camps than we think. Some guys the coaches are going to like more than we assume that they would. Again, we have a whole new coaching staff on both the Flyers and the Phantoms, so things will definitely change from our assumptions. Also, other guys like Tuamala who maybe could have a big offseason, come in ready. He did miss time at the end of the season with injuries and stuff like that. So, a lot of guys get forgotten about. Jet Luchenko is one of those guys. So let's go into it. We've kind of, again, I put these lines based on like some assumptions, but the one thing at least we know is Tyson Forester will most likely be in the starting lineup to start the season, which is very good news. Now, there was the assumption that they'll keep that third line together from last season. Maybe. Whole new coaching staff. So do they even care that the line worked last year? I don't know. I wouldn't mind it if they started out that way, but I will say I got frustrated this year when the other lines weren't working and Tortorella was riding a third line. And I think that's dumb. I think your goal should be to make sure your top line is scoring and then make sure that all of the other subsequent lines are also on top of their game. And you can put Noah Cates or Tyson Forester or even Bobby Brink with anyone. So why you have to stick all three of them together and hope that you have a shutdown third line pairing or line like that's gonna win every night? I don't think that is a smart way to go. So What I did here is just throw lines quickly together. I have no idea what the lines will be going into next season. Now, I can at least make somewhat of a guesstimate that Rick Tocchet is going to understand who Sean Couturier is. He's going to know who he is. Again, he's a Selke winning center. He will give him, I believe, the benefit of the doubt going into the season that he will be the number one center. He has to lose that spot, in my opinion. So he's starting off as a baseline. I know I'm not sure about Trevor Zegras. I don't know Noah Cates that well. I definitely don't know Luchenko. I know Dvorak, right? So maybe I'm gonna favor Dvorak. But Sean Couturier, I know he's the captain of the team. I think he's gonna start off as the number one center. Also because he's the most reliable defensively, and that includes all of the centers on this team as of the end of last season. Things could change, but I think that is the assumption. Now, Travis Konechny, also, Tocchet knows he will probably be a top line winger on this team, as he should be. The Matvey Michkov, he's going to be well aware of him. That's where I think, okay, could they be like, okay, we're going to throw that together and make it our top line? It's possible. I think there's also a chance that Owen Tippett takes that spot, and that's where I have Tyson Forester where he is. I look at Trevor Zegras. There are question marks of his two-way game. Whether he's improved or not is up for debate. I'm sure he has improved somewhat defensively. Is he good enough for what Rick Tocchet thinks he should be? I am not sure. I think they are definitely going to start him off at center. They are not going to assume he cannot play center. They brought him in here because they have a deficiency of playmaking centers who can skate, who can finish. He's the guy. They want to build him up. They're hoping he can be the number one center by the end of the season, right? So you assume that he will start as a second line center. Tyson Forester is the best two-way winger on this team. It's just a reality. It's why I'm so high on him. He's got the scoring touch. He's got the corner game. He's got the defensive game. He can block shots. He can PK. He can play power play. He's got a great work ethic. He's very mature for his age. There's a reason Sidney Crosby, everybody's talking about him now. He just showcased really well. He's going to be on Tocchet's radar. And that's where I kind of see a scenario of like, okay, Michkov, could play top line. I could see them wanting Forester, but I really think that they might want a guy like Tyson Forester playing with Trevor Zegras. The other options there are Dvorak, maybe even a Noah Cates, and both those guys are kind of brought into play center. And I'll talk about why they could be in the mix there too. But again, Tyson Forester, I think, makes the most sense playing with Trevor Zegras because he will compensate for Zegras's defensive lapses. And maybe he'll even play the right side, and then Owen Tippett will play the left. Who knows? But I kind of had Tippett on there because I think Tippett also needs a rejuvenation in his offensive game, right? He's never played with a playmaker of this ilk. The best he's played as a Flyer has been with Morgan Frost. Zegras is a better version of Morgan Frost in the playmaking dynamic department, right? So I would hope that maybe you can get more out of Owen Tippett. I don't think Michkov needs to play with the most dynamic center to be effective. I think he makes everybody around him better. So Sean Couturier has proven to be able to play with, Claude Giroux and Jake Voracek and high-end players back in the day. I think he can still do it if he's still trending in the direction he was. And then Konechny is obviously a high-end winger. So I would hope that that combination will be enough. We might not see this at all. Right, I could be completely wrong. I'm just breaking down thought processes. I could also throw down other scenarios where it's like Couturier with Forester and Bobby Brink, right? Like that, we could see that too. Nothing I would say is impossible at this point. And then the third line. So I believe that Jet Luchenko is going to make the Flyers. I brought this up already. I talked about Jim Jackson. I talked about Vasili last time. I think there is an air of like we're willing to burn a year of his contract and risk it with him because we don't know exactly where to put him. I don't think there's no benefit to him being in the OHL again. I don't agree with people on that. I think just because you play for a bad program doesn't mean you're going to get bad habits and all that. I don't agree with that stuff. In fact, I think the silver lining is there is that you are the man. You will be outnumbered and outpaced every night. So you will have to work your ass off every night and you will have to constantly find ways to do more, especially because we want to get more out of his offensive game. Could hurt confidence wise, right? Could. I don't think so with Luchenko, but I do believe the Flyers are kind of walking into this season going, look, he pretty much made the team last year. We sent him back because we wanted to be cautious. He wasn't utilized. People are saying he didn't have a better season in it. He was one of the only players in this past year's draft that had an uptick in productivity, especially over the first round picks. He was showed the most one of the most growth. So like I don't know where that statement's coming from that he didn't. He absolutely did. And I would argue because his team is not very good at scoring, he probably should have had more points. You know, like if you swap Denver Barkey and Jet Luchenko on their respective teams, I promise you Jet Luchenko is outpacing what Denver Barkey was able to do on a super team. Which is why everybody wanted him traded over there because they knew that his production numbers would spike. So I think part of the Flyers are like, okay, we want this kid here, but he's got to earn it. He's got to prove it. If he's still injured from his groin injury, that's an issue. That is an issue. But if he's healthy and he's fighting for a spot, I think they're going to want him on the team, but he has to win a spot, just like Bump is going to have to win a spot. I think both of those guys are in a very similar category. So Jet Luchenko will most likely want to be, they'll want to develop him as a center. Could they play him on wing? I think that's possible too, but I think they would be disappointed for a guy that they're hoping can be a number one center in the NHL or at least top six, that they'd have to shift him to wing to start his career. I think they want to try him at center. So and that's why I look at a guy like Noah Cates, who's not amazing at faceoffs, but very good defensively and has an offensive game that comes out even more when he's on the wing. So I kind of look at it as like, okay, if you put him in a modest third line role with a Noah Cates, with maybe a Bobby Brink, right? I'm just throwing out combinations here. You know, is that enough offense on the line where he can produce some offensively? Play a third line, two-way role with two guys who have proven to do really well in that spot, especially Noah Cates and Bobby Brink, who's improved dramatically. And Bobby Brink, by the way, can set up, and he's a good skater. He's not fast, but he's a good skater. He's a dynamic skater. He can play make. He can shoot. He's a good offensive player. You know, he put up 40 points in his second year in the league, so he projects to be at the very least a high-end middle six winger at the NHL. So I look at that where I'm like, I'm trying to fit Luchenko in the middle. Now, if Luchenko doesn't make the team, I think there's a very good chance that Kate stays in the middle. And he might stay in the middle anyway because he's that good defensively. And Bump ends up moving into that spot. And this is why I have Bump here, as you can see on the fourth line. With Christian Dvorak and Garnet Hathaway. I don't see that being the fourth line. Part of me thinks that there's one spot. Now the Foerster is healthy. And again, there might be other injuries, so it might be moot, and there might still be more spots available. Do I think the team is better with Bump on it, you know, rather than playing in the minors? Yeah, but I don't think they want him playing fourth line role where he's barely getting PK or power play time. And I think the same thing goes with Jet Luchenko. The caveat is Bump you can send to the minors and have him play top line left wing for at least the beginning of the season. There will always be injuries. There will always be problems. Now, if he is 100% NHL ready and he's dominant in preseason, okay, then you're not going to send him down just to save a roster spot. You'll figure it out. But my guess is that he's not going to be a cut above like a Jet Luchenko who didn't play in Dev Camp. He's not going to be a cut above, you know, a lot of other guys competing, right? Like even like a Rodrigo Abels, who is not as good as Bump, especially offensively, but defensively might be better. He's big, he can win faceoffs, right? So Abels is kind of in that group, right? You have Tuamala out there too. You still have Richard. You have the new guy Peterson. He's gonna have to compete with all these guys, and he has to look better than them immediately to make the Flyers. And you also have the luxury of sending him to the minors, letting him build his game even a little bit more. He didn't play that much. And when I look at the fact that in the playoffs, Luchenko outplayed Bump, I kind of am considering that somewhat. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think both scenarios have to be considered. So let's say Luchenko doesn't make the team. I'll take him out of the roster. You shift Noah Cates back. Maybe Alex Bump is the guy who replaces Tyson Forester on that line, which I think is a pretty nice replacement. And then a guy like Forrester can play a larger role. Could you play Bump with Tippett and Zegras or something, or even with Couturier and Konechny? I think that's possible too. I look at a line like Michkov, Tippett, and Zegras. And again, I know it's fun for us to talk about the skill and the high flying and all that, but the reality is the coach is not going to think that way. The coach is going to be like, are we getting hemmed in our own zone? Who on this line is good at winning puck battles? It could be tried in preseason. It should be. All of these combinations should be tried in camp and in preseason and in practice. They should have all kinds of scenarios baked out. But I think ideally teams want a good balance of physicality, playmaking, shooting, defensive prowess, and then like maybe you have a more defensive line, but you don't want a line that's just getting hemmed in their own zone. But there's a lot of things here that are possible. And I think Bump definitely could be anywhere in that top nine, assuming he definitively makes the team. He's 100% NHL ready, and he looks like he can fit in because he's a complimentary type of guy. Like he might look really good with Sean Couturier and TK. He might look really good with Trevor Zegras or with Noah Cates and Bobby Brink, and he might have really good chemistry with Owen Tippett for some reason, or Matvei Michkov. We don't know exactly. So I think there's really one spot open on that third line as of right now, with the assumption of health that we can make right now. Now, Forester's not in. I think both Luchenko and Bump can make the team. Also maybe neither one of them make the team is a scenario that's possible too. Somebody we don't expect. They go more forward heavy in the beginning of the year, but let's be honest, we don't really expect that. I mean, Bump and Luchenko are both borderline guys last year. So, there's other guys like Dorwart too. And I can't, or Kaplan. I think people are just naming them because they played. But again, they were just giving them the 1 year ALC to play, to get them to sign. They have to earn and beat other guys out. It's possible that Dorwart does, or Kaplan. I don't see Kaplan. I don't think he's NHL ready. Dorwart, I think he's borderline too. But he also falls on, and he can play bottom six role, which is the benefit of him. But he wasn't very effective in the NHL. You don't want to just like be like, oh, well, we can just burn his year. You want him to develop too. Maybe he's better than a lot of the fan base assumes, right? So like a lot of these guys, they need time. They need time to acclimate, to adapt, and they need to prove it at the AHL level before they can make it their way up. I think, again, the only two guys outside of Porter Martone that really fall into that category are Bump and Luchenko. So they kind of matter. Now, Dvorak, also an X factor. Like, let's say Alex Bump doesn't make the team, right? Let's say Bump and Luchenko are both out. Is there a world where Dvorak moves up, plays with Noah Cates? Maybe he even plays third line center. Noah Cates plays wing, Nick Delorier, and then your bottom line is just big bruiser banging line, with an Abels and Hathaway. I don't think so. But this stuff is possible, and Dvorak, he is getting paid significant, but let's assume, he's overpaid. He's being paid 2 years in 1 year. That's what they did, right? So he's really being paid around a little less than $3 million a year. That is somewhere between third and fourth line, You look at what Hathaway gets paid, right? So he's a little bit better than Hathaway offensively. He definitely is better than Hathaway offensively. He plays a center role, right? So he's not as physical as Hathaway, but I think ideally they'll look to have a combination. Like I don't think they want their fourth line to just be throwaway guys. I don't think Nick Laurier is an everyday NHL player. I think he is at best the 13th forward at this point, but a valuable role in that physical role. And then that one third line spot is either Bump or Luchenko. And I think because Luchenko can't be dropped to the minors, he will get the longer look to start the year. And Alex Bump there's a good chance he'll start in the AHL to start the year. And then by the end of the year, will be in the NHL or as soon as, his first call up guy. The other X factor are guys like Denver Barkey, who I don't think the Flyers will rush into the NHL, but I do think about the fact how long his look was 2 years ago. And they had a hard time sending him back then. He's a guy I would not be surprised it complicates things for the Flyers. Where they're like, oh, I don't get it. He's undersized. We know he needs more time in the minors, but every time he plays, he's a pain in the ass in the opposition. He manages to put up points. There's all kinds of X factors kind of built into this. Now, the defense is a little different. It's a crapshoot with the D because part of me looks at what they did last year and then the fact that as soon as Shaw took over, he started throwing out new combinations, which means he didn't love Tortorella's combinations probably to begin with. And I can't see Tocchet approaching it the most. Like what I would like to see, and again, we don't know what's going on with Ristolainen, right? I don't think Noah Juleson was brought in here to be an everyday defenseman. Sorry. Don't agree with NHL.com and all these stupid early predictions. I think Dan Gilbert is not going to even make the team. I think the Flyers look at their best defensemen as Igor Zamula, Nick Seeler, Jamie Drysdale, Rasmus Ristolainen, Travis Sanheim, Cam York, and Emil Andre is on that precipice, just like it was last year. Noah Juleson is in that mix. Helge Grans is in that mix. And I think Bonk, they hope, he shows up and they can't keep him off the roster, but they know realistically he's a defenseman. They're going to give him extra time to cook probably the entire season. The people might not like that. Hopefully he proves us wrong, but he wasn't taken like top 5 to be, if he's a guy who ends up being a top pairing defenseman in the NHL, it's going to be a journey for him. It's not going to be overnight success in the NHL most likely. He's the opposite of somebody like Hudson, where his offensive game is not flashy enough and elite enough to just make it in the NHL and start contributing offensively. He needs to contribute defensively, and it's very hard to do that for these young players to be a defensive, solid, stalwart player immediately. So I think there is a chance we could see something like we saw last year. This is what I would experiment with if I was, and again, health here definitely assumed. I would like to see, can I get Jamie Drysdale playing with Travis Sanheim? Is that a good enough pairing? Can they? It's got the right combination of size, speed, playmaking on it. Cam York with Ristolainen, that seems like a really, really good second pairing, to be honest with you. If Risto can play the way he did last year and York can play the way he did the previous year, that's a really good second pairing D. And there's also the option of playing Risto with Sanheim. But the problem is you have a size issue throughout the one of the other pairings. And then with Seeler, you got any one of the young defensemen playing with Seeler. He's reliable, whether it be Zamula or Andre. Maybe Andre starts in the minors again. And maybe it's Zamula. I would probably try something like this. And if not, I'd roll back into the previous year's pairings. This one's really tough. I think Camp's really going to show us a lot because I would not be shocked if a guy like Helge Grans comes in and just takes a spot at the NHL level, like next year. Like he's big, he's fast, he can move the puck. He outplayed Zamula, when he came up. We'll see because he was trending in the right direction too. And Andre kind of flattened out a little bit. But again, don't make too many assumptions that an off season can't kickstart off. Guys can't fix what they've been working on, can't come in faster and stronger. And that goes for everybody, including guys like Zamula, who a lot of people have kind of like, oh, yeah, we're done with him. What if he comes in and he's much better? Like he's better than Noah Juleson and Dan Gilbert. I don't know why they're listed as the bottom pairing defenseman for the Flyers on like a lot of these, Instagram posts. Like the guy had what 1 point in the NHL last year. Again, he's not like amazing defensively either. I think they brought him in because he's that bridge guy, and he's not old. He's 28 years old. Doesn't mean that he's a bad defenseman, but I just don't see how he's like better than Zamula immediately or better than Andre. I don't see that. So, and again, Ristolainen's health is going to be a big determinant of that. And that probably determines on who makes the team out of camp because Risto is a big part of this D. So, and if he's not in the combination, maybe you do have to roll something out like you did the previous year where you just keep York and Sanheim together. You roll them 25 minutes a night. You do Drysdale and Sealer, and then the bottom pairing is some kind of combination of Juleson and Zamula or Granz and Zamula or Granz and Andre who have a history of playing together at several different levels. I don't know, but I'm curious to see how that pans out going into the season. Maybe there'll be a PTO invite. I see that territory being open to that. Like Matt Grzelcyk, who is not very good defensively, but is very good offensively. I don't think the Flyers are going to do it because I think they brought in their two guys with Gilbert and Juleson, and they have enough defensemen at the lower level that they want to give a chance. But we'll see. I would say this is actually where the Flyers need to improve the most is they need to make sure that they figure out in hopefully it's York or Drysdale, but who is playing with Sanheim long term because he is already a top pairing, legit top pairing number two defenseman. I believe he's a number two on almost every team in the NHL outside of like another team that has like two number ones or one of the best number twos in the league, like a Jacob Slavin. It's hard for me to call him a number one. Defensively he is, but offensively he's more limited for the same reason why Sanheim is not, a true number one. He's like not amazing offensively. He's good, but he's not like amazing. Typically number ones are like they do it all, right? They do it all. It's different than a number one center. Because again, their primary role is to play defense and get the puck out of their zone. Their secondary role is to be offensive. So if they can do both, that's where like Cale Makar is a complete outlier because he came in, he wasn't great at defense, but he was unbelievable offensively. Like McDavid on D. And then his defense, because he's a generational talent, his defense has improved, right? So now he's just like in that next tier. Quinn Hughes, the guy who came in where his defense wasn't very good, his offensive game was unbelievable, and then over the past like 3-4 years, his defense game got better, so everything rounded out. That's probably why he's maybe the second best defenseman in the NHL at this point. Yeah, and goaltending, let's assume it's Ersson, Vladar. I think Ersson will be the starter, Vladar will be the backup. That's not much to say about that. We'll see how things pan out, and we'll see how injuries play a role. The whole situation in the minors, geez, I have no clue what these lines are going to be. Whole new coach. I don't even have it broken up on who I think is like kind of best. If Bump plays down here, things change dramatically. I think Barkey might be given time at center. I think that is possible, but most likely will start on wing. They need guys on the left wing anyway. Him and Gabrankin and Richard and Tuamala and Gendron and Wisdom and Dorwer and Wilson. All these guys are kind of mixed in that top nine. I think like Devin Kaplan, Oh, Peterson too is definitely he's one of the better AHL forwards. So he's definitely gonna be mixed there. Then J.R. Avon needs to prove himself. Massimo Rizzo needs to prove himself. Oscar Eklund's more of like a bottom six guy. Garrett Wilson is like also bottom six, but he's also a captain. Zayd Wisdom still needs to prove that he deserves an NHL contract or a legitimate pro contract. Sawyer Bolton's probably not ready for the AHL. I could see him being a CHL guy. The defense, just as crazy, but we know Granz will be a top pairing guy. Bonk will most likely be used at the second pairing level. We'll see Dennis Gilbert will be mixed in there with Yinning, Hunter McDonald as well. I thought maybe they go Hunter McDonald, Granz could be McDonald, Bonk, and Gilbert with Granz, or Yinning with Granz, and Ethan Sanson also is a budding young defenseman who's exceeding expectations at the moment. So I am curious to see how he works out next year as well. And they have three legitimate right-handed defensemen at that level. So I'm interested to see Ty Murchison. I can see him being rotated in. Um, again, there's like other guys like Carson Golder. Like these guys are probably ECHL potential as well. Same with Ben Meehan. Um, or Maheen. So I'm not sure. Goaltending wise, this is even more confusing. What the heck is going on with Kolosov? There's no word. I'll say it again. I would be surprised if he's on the team come beginning of the season. But if he is here, where's he playing? I don't think the Flyers are looking to hold on to him at the pro level. I think that's a little weird. Um, and we'll see how Ivan Fedotov even responds to being sent to the minors. I think just going off of the way, and again, we're assuming he's going to be sent to the minors, right? I talked about it. A lot of people like to count him out 100%, but he was a rookie last year, adjusting to a new country. There is a world where he's not terrible this year. Like that is possible. I know that people like to write stuff off, but like he could be a decent backup in the NHL. That is still possible out there. I don't think they're going to roll into the season making that assumption, but maybe he comes in the AHL, he starts playing well, and all of a sudden you're like, he looks pretty good. He might get another chance because he's on a substantial contract for one more year. And even if you could get him back in the NHL and potentially move him at 50% retained, get a fourth round pick or something, get a fifth round pick, and just get his contract and his money off the books, give him another chance with another team, you're going to explore that. But assuming he'll come back and play on the minors, he had a really good attitude with all the bullshit he put up last year. The not playing and of Kolosov coming in, he never complained. That's the one thing you can't say about Fedotov. The guy's got a good attitude. He's a professional. So I do expect him to come be the starter on the in the minors. I expect Kolosov to be in Belarus, and Bjarnason and Yaniv Peretz and Keith Petrozuli will Yaniv Peretz and Petrozuli will most likely be ECHL guys, but will battle for that backup role with Bjarnason, who most likely will be the backup at the AHL level. There is a chance he starts the season at ECHL to get accommodated to pro hockey, and they choose to have Petrozuli or Peretz there, who both have AHL experience in the short term, or they think that Kolosov will play in the minors next year, and they plan on rotating those three goalies there. I don't know. Ideally, what would be best for the Phantoms is that Fedotov and Kolosov are down there, and the two guys who are playing backup roles are now AHL level goaltenders, and Bjarnason gets to rotate into games and start building his pro game. Because for those who think he's going to come into the minors and like make his way up to the Flyers, like that's extremely unlikely. He is not Carter Hart. Carter Hart was an anomaly. I brought it up over and over again. When people complained about him, I'm like, I don't care that you're complaining about Carter Hart. He's not even supposed to be here yet, and he's a starter in the NHL. Like, that is so rare for goalies to do what Carter Hart did. So I don't expect it from Bjarnason. If he does it, woohoo, we're lights out with him and Zavragin then. Zavragin is a guy I could see potentially doing that. because of how well he's playing against men right now. And there is a world where Zavragin, who does seem to be a legitimate blue chip goaltending prospect, the best we've had since Carter Hart, that he could potentially do that as well. But he is 2 years away, right? He's got this year, and then he's got the last year of his deal, and then realistically, the Flyers are going to try to bring him over, depending on what the scenario is here. And assuming he wants to play in the NHL, he'll probably want to try that. But he's going to be one of those guys where he's going to want to come into the NHL like Kolosov tried to do, and the Flyers are not going to make that mistake twice, right? So you can bring him over when he is legitimately ready. Hopefully, he's got a better attitude than at least Kolosov's camp. I don't know if it's all Kolosov. I've heard, we've heard from Briere that it's not all Kolosov, that it's like partly his camp that doesn't want him playing in the minors because of the look of it or whatever. But we will see. The good thing is that they have options, and maybe they'll even have somebody else at camp, willing to try out if Kolosov's not there. But good to know that you have Fedotov to be recalled because injuries are always a thing. And we'll see. I'm really excited to see the camp battle because like if I'm trying to figure out who's in the lineup right now, it's like it's so hard because we don't know what this coaching staff is going to be thinking. We also have a very young team that all have X factors of players who could improve dramatically or stagnate over a year or two, or even half a year, or a month, or have an injury that we don't know about, right? So it's so hard right now. The best time to figure it out, honestly, is like during preseason. It sounds like a no-brainer, but that really is the necessity of preseason, is like for the health gauge, see where guys are competing against their other guys, and also see how the coach is using them. We have no idea. It was easier with Tortorella because we could make assumptions because we knew what Tortorella tends to do. We can make assumptions about Take, but we've never seen it in this context. And if you already heard people's initial assumptions where, oh, he's going to play double chase hockey, none of that was even true. All that's a load of crap. There's like this initial wave when something happens around the Flyers where there's like this voice, this collective voice of nonsense that just pops out of the ether, and it spreads like wildfire over social media. And then after things die down, people like myself and other people pop up and they go, that wasn't true. That's not true. Where's that assumption coming from? And you just start asking those questions. You see a lot of that stuff starts to disappear over time. And it's usually a negative thing. There's like that loud minority. There's a loud minority in both directions, like over positive and overly negative. And usually you have to wait for them to like kind of dissipate a little bit, and then you get a clearer picture of one thing. It doesn't mean like the negative has no point or the positive has no point. It's just like you end up like just hearing a bunch of nonsense just shoot out of the social media atmosphere, kind of all at once. It was like, oh, Flyers picked Luchenko over Boyum. What is the end? And then people actually get to watch Jet Luchenko and they go, oh, this guy's actually pretty good, So again, we'll see. That's all I got. Just another fun experiment. We're gonna keep talking about. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on line combinations. If you guys want to put them in the comments, that stuff's cool. Because these are complete guesses right now. Like I don't even know. Like a guy like Lane Peterson, I don't even know if he's gonna play center. The guy has played both right wing and center. I don't know. I don't know what he's gonna play. Oscar Eklund has played center at times. Massimo Rizzo, is he really a fourth line center? No. He's a playmaker. Is he going to be better? Like, I have no idea. So much of this matters, like how this new coaching staff at both levels evaluates this current talent, how they want to put this group together. The good news is they have options, and we'll see what kind of injuries. And like, again, another guy like Tuomala, I'm really hoping that he can get a good look at the NHL level. We thought it was going to happen last year. It never happened. The Flyers are a little down on his two-way game, His defensive game is not good. It's not good enough, and that's a problem. So he's got to fix that, and maybe he did in the off season. We'll see. I'm very much hoping that that we get a good look at players in this rookie showcase in the middle of September. It's going to be a big deal, and hopefully guys are healthy. Hopefully Luchenko is healthy, because if Luchenko's not healthy heading into training camp, I don't know how he could make the team. Like, the best move might be to be like, all right, well, let him go, you know, OHL. It is what it is. It's not ideal, but we're not going to force him into pro hockey not being healthy. I think he will be healthy. I think a lot of what's going on with him was tentative, like I said to Vasili. Um, like, I don't think he played in the showcase because they're like, dude, you're not 100%. You're going to be on that team. They know you as a player. You already were a starter on the team last year. What's the point of forcing it? Just stay home, recover, be ready for training camp. We expect you to be in the NHL next year. You might not even play in the WJSS. Or you might not end up playing in World Juniors in general. Like, if Luchenko's ready, he's ready. So we'll see. All right. I just want to remind everyone to please like and subscribe, hit the notification bell for notification, get notified when we release these episodes. And for the audio version, go to Spotify and iTunes and give us a rating and a follow as well. That is the best way to support this podcast. If you have not done that now and you made it this far, please do those things now. Any one of those things is helpful. But the subscriptions and the ratings and all that stuff, that it's awesome. I check for that stuff like every day. So the more we get, the better. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Jim Steaks at 4th and South. Make sure to go get yourself a cheesesteak from Jim's. They have one of the best, if not the best, cheesesteak in Philadelphia. Make sure to check out Jim Steaks. Public Summit Adjusters, 215-752-0560. Go to them for your insurance adjustment needs. They will help facilitate the process between you and your insurance company and make sure you get the best claim possible. And also, shout out to sportspider.com. They are our partners. Our stuff is pinned at the top. They aggregate content from all over the internet for all sports, but definitely for the Flyers and the NHL. Make sure to check them out. Sportspider.com. The link to them is in the description of both the video and audio versions of this show. I think Vasili will be back for the next episode. I'm not 100%. If not, I'll probably do another one of these alone. I think we'll see. I've been kind of busy outside of this show, and there's not much news to like compile, so it's not even like worth having people on, I feel like. So if he's not back, I'll do it by myself most likely, and then we'll be pretty close to normal when we hit September. So and we're gonna have more to talk about, I assume, then as well. All right, thank you everybody for listening. We love you guys. Always appreciate you. And remember, we love you. Always stay